been a while since Enlisted has made an appearance on the channel, and I think it's time to talk about why. For me, I personally stopped playing the game right after the Airborne Forces update came out, and it really was because small issues started compounding into larger problems for the game. So let's first dive back on Enlisted's history and see what this game was supposed to be. Enlisted was a game that was announced in 2016 to mixed reception. World War II shooters at that time were very oversaturated in the FPS genre market. Just remember, in 2017 we're having Call of Duty World War II. In 2018 we had the release of Battlefield 5, which also wasn't really praised, but at the same time there was a ton of World War II shooters out and about during those times. Now, for the sake of Enlisted, the air was pretty quiet when it came to updates about the game between the years of 2016 to 2019. Mainly they would just announce small things like the movement or showing off Normandy, but at the time Enlisted really wasn't doing much when it came to marketing itself as a game, because the only thing that we really had was the announcement trailer. But funny enough, at one time Enlisted was actually planning on being a paid game where you would just buy the campaigns outright instead of having to be a free-to-play game. I personally believe this was the biggest issue of on why Enlisted started failing, because they were planning for one thing but then having to modify pretty much the whole entire game to support a free-to-play title. I mean, it's clearly easy to see that that was an issue because they had to do a whole merger where they had to merge all the campaigns because they had unexpected problems with the campaign system, mainly being that there just wasn't enough players to fill out the whole entire game. So you had teams that would be basically vacant because there wasn't a queue system to queue people into, let's just say, dead campaigns. Like, for example, Italy on Tunisia, and then for Japan on America for the Pacific. So it was definitely one of those weird things of just there wasn't enough people to play the game. And so DarkFlow had to make a decision of, well, do we cannibalize campaigns? That would probably be a bad option, but we maybe can actually combine a bunch of the campaigns to where we can actually have a player base that can support both sides of each team. But there was also other problems with the campaign system, mainly being around the grind, because think about it, right? So there's 4 different German teams that you can possibly queue into. You had Moscow, you had Berlin, you had Tunisia, which technically was Italy, but we're going to count it as Germany, and then finally you had Normandy. So you had 4 campaigns where you were unlocking pretty much the same equipment. For example, you had 4 MP40s that you could grind out, and most players, instead of grinding out each one of these German campaigns, would pick the campaigns which had the most equipment. For example, if you were playing Germany, you would go play Normandy or you would go play Berlin, just because those campaigns had the most amount of equipment that you could unlock. And then you had very huge problems with like Moscow, and then you had it with Tunisia of just where no one really wanted to play those sides because there was better campaigns to play for that nation, which was just always kind of sad to see. This problem also kind of affected America because you did have America within the Normandy campaign, and then you had it for Japan. So there was huge issues with like the Japanese team just winning, because if you had people who want to play Japan, most of the people who want to play America were either in Normandy or they were in Tunisia, but then Tunisia also started to see that problem as well. So overall, the campaign system as a whole just was not working with the amount of players that Enlisted currently had. Enlisted has never been on a level of where the campaign system could have worked. It could have worked if they would have not like rushed in a bunch of campaigns, but at the same time, the matchmaker was broken. You had games that were pretty much just bot games because they could not find players to actually play the game. So now to speak about the merger, it was a very rough time for Enlisted, and it was about the time that I just started watching what Enlisted was doing because I was very concerned for the game as a whole, and I still kind of am. Now, whenever we look at the merge of the campaigns, it was officially announced within February of 2023, and it was a highly requested solution to the problem of just lower player counts for certain campaigns. But players waited, and then they waited some more, and waited, and then finally, at the very end of the year of 2023 in December, we got the update of the merge, which was kind of surprising. So it was only shy of 2 months from being a full year from the announcement of the merge to the merge actually coming into the game. So the whole year of 2023 was a bit concerning just for Enlisted, because we got the announcement in February and basically there was little news on it. I think there was like something in like July, but at the end of the day of things, it was kind of crazy that it almost took a whole year, which in a game sense, a year can be a massive amount of time for something to come into the game that was hopefully going to fix the campaign system, which to me at least is just kind of crazy. Now, personally for me, with the merge coming out, I did come back and looked at Enlisted and logged into the game to just see what it was about. But at the same time, I just didn't play any games, and I'll talk about that later in the video. But at the same time, from hearing from other players, I think most people were pretty happy with the whole entire system. You no longer had to grind out 4 MP40s within your tech tree, or you had to sit on Italian teams, which maybe would have like 1 or 2 actual players on your team versus a whole team of like Americans, for example. But at the end of the day of things, it was just crazy that the merge took so long to come out. And to be quite honest with you, I feel like it was a little bit too late, because Enlisted was one of those games that got popped up by, let's just say, the coronavirus, and it was definitely one of those games that a lot of people played back in the day. But I feel like a lot of the veteran players was either kind of bored with it and they just moved on to different things. Like, that's basically what I've seen from the year of 2023. Now, at the same time, whenever I logged into Enlisted, there was a problem that I just didn't want to deal with, and that was that my whole entire Enlisted hangar, which was like the UI and everything, was equivalent to a Tarkov hoarder whenever it comes to their loot, and basically not having any space within your stash. So for me at least, I did not feel like spending maybe 2 or 3 hours actually going through all of my squads, kitting them out to the BR system, fixing them, because there was a new whole entire system of the battle ratings, and to me at least, it just wasn't worth my time going through all that sort of stuff, fixing all my redundant squads, and I was just done. Like, I have not touched the game since then. I did play the like zombies event, but that was basically it. But from the merge update, for a veteran player, I would have almost rather just had a brand new account to play the game instead of having to go through all of that mess of a UI. And as far as I know, maybe they fixed it. I haven't returned since, but that whole entire thing is the whole reason of why I just don't play Enlisted right now. And I feel like for some people, that's probably also the same thing. I know a couple of people who went through like the 2 or 3 hours to fix all their squads and everything, but personally for me, I have better stuff to do, and that's why I've not returned. So even though I've not returned to Enlisted, I have kept an eye on the game itself, and I've also seen that they were planning a Steam release, which to me at least, looking back on it now at least, is incredibly sad and funny at the same time. So for a little bit of context on the whole entire Steam release of Enlisted, we need to know something that the Gaijin CEO said, which is Anton Yudinsev. If you don't know who he is the big shot at Gaijin that definitely makes all of the decisions whenever it comes to big things, and stuff like this is something that he is going to make a decision on. So back in 2019, whenever Anton Yudinsev did a interview with like a little website thing, he actually said that if he had the option to basically do it over again, he would never release Warthunder to Steam. And basically the reason behind that is because Gaijin thinks, at least from their end, that most users that they obtained whenever it came to Warthunder actually was promoted through them instead of Steam. So Steam, to them at least, really wasn't a huge help in getting players. And the thing about Steam is that it takes a commission whenever it comes to sell through their platform. So at least through Gaijin's eyes, they see a player on their own website, on their own launcher, more valuable than they would see somebody on Steam. So whenever it came to a actual Steam launch, I was very cognizant of this. I know a ton of people were very critical whenever it came to like, well, Steam is just going to give Enlisted a ton of new players and all that sort of stuff. I was never against the Steam like change at all. Like, I think it would have been very cool for it to come to Steam, but I do also realize that Anton is saying this for a reason, and the reason just came to fruition very quickly with the launch of Enlisted on Steam, at least the first launch. Now, from that statement, it's very odd that Gaijin would be publishing Enlisted on Steam, and to me at least, it threw a red flag, a huge one to me, whenever DarkFlow released a devlog of Steam, and at the very bottom of the devlog, it said that they would only allow count transfers for 30 days. And once again, that threw a huge red flag into like my brain, because I'm just like, Warthunder's on Steam. I don't think that I have a 30-day window to switch over my account for Warthunder, so why would they be doing this for Enlisted? And then at the same time, I was like, this feels wrong. This definitely something is up with this. So whenever the first Steam release came out, I knew why. I knew exactly why they did this. So if you don't know what happened with the first Steam release of Enlisted, they basically turned a free-to-play game into a paid game on Steam. So you could still go get the free-to-play version on like the Enlisted website or on the Gaijin website, but if you wanted to play the game officially through Steam, you had to go actually pay money to do it, which to me at least is just crazy. And the whole reason that was done is clearly for the simple fact of they did not want their users, which were already on their Gaijin launcher or already on their Gaijin website making purchases, going over to Steam where they would just lose commission because Steam would take their cut out. So whenever I looked at that and I seen that, I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's definitely what they did. That's definitely why they have a 30-day like thing, because they're hoping a lot of the players just don't come back and transfer their Steam account. So they would be stuck and they would be forced to use the Gaijin launcher and also use the Gaijin store, which would net them more money. So with the failure of the Steam release, at least the first variant of the Steam release of Enlisted, we had some damage control by some of the community managers, which were even suggesting that you just need to go to your Steam library and put Enlisted as a third-party app so you could technically launch it through Steam. At the end of the day, the Enlisted Steam launch lasted not even 24 hours before they took it off of sale because they knew this was a horrible and terrible decision, and I have no clue of why this got past literally anybody with a brain, because this is insanity to me that anyone would think this was a really good idea. Maybe they were just like, oh yeah, maybe we'll just keep our players on our Gaijin launcher, maybe they won't complain, but at the same time, the Steam release of Enlisted was a heavily requested feature. If they were going to do something like this, I don't know why. And that's the crazy portion of this, is like, why would you do this? After you think about it for like 5 seconds, you would be like, oh, I don't think people would really want to pay for a free-to-play game on Steam whenever you can go get it for free, but we want to like gatekeep people so they don't like go to Steam, but also release it at the same time. It's so confusing, so wacky, and I'm not sure why DarkFlow, why Gaijin did this. It is so stupid that they ever tried. Now, for one little bit of context with this, there was a bunch of people through Gaijin and also through DarkFlow that did leave the company themselves. I'm not really going to go over that drama because I don't think it's really related to this video as a whole. There was people who did cover it on Reddit and all that sort of stuff. If you want to look into it, it is very interesting. But at the same time, just realize this, that this was probably one of the biggest mess ups within DarkFlow, within Gaijin in a very long time. And if I would have to assume a bunch of stuff, that there was not a bunch of happy people when it came to the first Steam release of Enlisted. So pretty much after this was when I completely stopped following the development of Enlisted. The incompetency of pretty much the whole entire team of DarkFlow was like on display here, which was just crazy to me that this even happened. But at the end of the day, it did look like there was some light at the end of the tunnel with this sort of thing. They started hiring some new people whenever it came to the actual team itself. And I mean, so far, to me at least, this is what I'm going to say about this. I'm not going to name anybody because I don't think it's right to, but you should know who I'm basically talking about whenever it comes to just the whole entire DarkFlow team itself. I feel like, to me at least, it's a hard job, definitely, whenever you have the old people who used to run things mess up like a ton, and then you're just given something that you're supposed to fix. I think it's an incredibly hard job to do, and especially since once people have a negative like reception of a different product or a different thing, they're most likely never going to see the positives once again, and they're always going to relate back to whenever their negativity was at its max. And for most people, they're going to see pre-merge, or they're going to see the Steam launch, they're going to see a bunch of stuff which were just negative for the game, and it's overall just going to taint the reception of the game itself, which is a very hard thing to come back from, which we definitely see right now whenever it comes to Enlisted. Over time though, Enlisted did come back to Steam whenever it came to July of 2024. It was finally free to play, which means that you just had to log in and you could actually transfer your Gaijin account very seamlessly over to Steam, which I think overall was a huge positive thing. They did mention that they would have to maybe at one time actually in support for this sort of thing, but at the same time, it's better than like 30 days, because 30 days was a pretty small amount of time to actually transfer over. But honestly, like I've said before, I feel like the damage was already done from the first Steam launch, and especially since it was like a huge negative event, I feel like for a lot of people, they were just like kind of done with the game itself. They didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And once again, you get like 2 chances at launch. You got one for the beta, the open beta testing, and then went into open testing just in general. And then you had the Steam launch, which also didn't go as well as we thought it would. So overall, whenever you look at the Enlisted player base, at least from the Steam numbers, I do realize that there's numbers from PlayStation, there's numbers from Xbox, there's numbers from the actual Gaijin launcher, but at least on Steam, the game itself is stagnating, and at least it's consistent, but it's not really growing much at all. Even in the Warthunder's infancy, whenever it came to 2013-14, Warthunder itself had more players than Enlisted does right now, at least on the Steam version of the game, which I think is just crazy. There was less people on Steam in general. There was less people just in general playing video games, which to me at least just kind of shines a light that Enlisted needs to improve some sort of way. And yes, I do know Warthunder is a niche game. I know someone's going to bring that up, and it's going to be something that I'm going to talk about, but if you want to use another example, Heroes and Generals, it peaked out higher than Enlisted ever has right now. And I feel like that is going to be a huge problem for the game just going forward. Overall, like I said at the start of the video, small problems equal to very big ones for Enlisted. And with these small problems just combining, many of these issues became so big to where a lot of things just collapsed. I mean, there was some where they were preventable, like the terrible Steam launch, but at the same time, there's a question that I really want to ask right now, and I want to hear you guys' opinion on it. statement. Is the era of World War II first-person shooters finally over? So that's the end of the video technically, but I do want to go over a portion of why personally for me that I quit playing Enlisted and I changed the channel over to Warthunder. So at the end of the day, many of you probably assumed that it was just because the viewership was higher, which I mean technically it was. The channel grew a lot more when it came to Warthunder than it did Enlisted, but the overall honest answer about this is that I was just kind of tired of the game. Like whenever I played Enlisted, I wasn't having fun anymore. I wasn't really doing stuff that I wanted to do, and to me at least, whenever that sort of time comes, I either need to take a break from what I'm doing or I just need to change things up. And I think at that time, whenever it came to Enlisted, the answer was to change things up. And I've always enjoyed Warthunder. I've been playing the game since 2013. I played it off and on consistently. You know, I do take breaks every so often and go play another game or do other things, but at the same time, Warthunder still to me at least is an extremely fun game, even for its flaws, even for its issues. I still enjoy very much playing it, but at the same time, I really could not say the same thing for Enlisted. I was very tired of the updates themselves. Like I didn't really see much content that I was interested in. I was more interested in Enlist first-person shooter aspect of the game than I was in the planes, than I was in the tanks, and I just seen every single update, instead of it being more infantry focused, it would be more tank focused or to be more aircraft focused. And to me at least, if I'm going to play in aircraft or I'm going to plane cycle or I'm going to play tanks, I'd rather just go play the tank game, like go play Warthunder, which is basically what I did. But yeah, that's my hugest issue with it, is that I just wasn't having fun. Like I feel like that's the best way to put it, and I would love to come back to Enlisted. I would love like if they introduced some sort of game mode of where they just took out the planes, they took out the tanks, and it was just back to like Berlin. Berlin, whenever it released, was like peak Enlisted because most of those fights were through infantry, and I feel like that was Enlisted's strong suit. I really enjoy games whenever it's like a hardcore first-person shooter of where your time to kill is super low. I feel like that is just kind of fun to me, and to me at least, Enlisted back in 2021 and 2022 were a bunch of fun, but whenever I look at it now, I'm just like, there's a Super Pershing. Oh, what am I going to do as a Japanese main? Oh, there's just a Tiger 2H. Oh yeah, what am I going to do in my Sherman if I had to face that thing? And whenever I just view Enlisted, the vehicle combat itself, I think for me at least, is what ruined the game overall, because it's not that fun just fighting tanks and fighting aircraft, and you kill them and then they could just cycle back straight into a plane or cycle back straight into a tank, and there's very much nothing to do about it. So overall, that's my opinion of Enlisted. I would really love to return to the game one day. Hopefully, and I'm not sure, maybe one of you guys can correct him in the comments if you've been playing the game recently. Is there something I can do to like not have to micromanage all my squads? Please. I played all the campaigns like whenever the merge was like not a thing, so like I don't want to have to go through all of them. I really don't. I really don't. But at the same time, I really hope you guys have a wonderful day, and if you did start watching me from the Enlisted days, definitely thank you. It is one of those things that I can't thank you well enough for, because I really did try for that game to be something, and overall I've just enjoyed making videos since. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys in the next Warthunder video.